On July 18, 1984, in San Ysidro, California, a 41-year-old man, James Huberty, stormed into a popular fast food restaurant, opening fire on 45 innocent men, women, and children. This incident, which lasted over an hour, is now known as the San YSIDRO MCDONALD'S Massacre. Today we will examine the circumstances surrounding that tragic day and explore its lasting impact on the community. As of the upload of this video, the San YSIDRO MCDONALD'S Massacre stands as the 8th deadliest mass shooting by a lone gunman in U.S. history, and remains the deadliest mass shooting in California's history. Hello and welcome back to TTHL. James Huberty was born in Canton, Ohio on October 11, 1942. His father worked hard to provide for the family, while his mother focused on raising him and his sibling in a religious household, attending the local United Methodist Church. At just 3 years old, he contracted polio, which left him with a lifelong limp. Despite wearing leg braces for years to help him walk again, the disease had a lasting impact, resulting in a permanent limp that stayed with him throughout his life. In 1950, at the age of 8, a significant event reshaped their family dynamics. His father bought a farm in Mount Eaton, Ohio, but his mother declined to join them. Instead, she pursued a separate path as a Pentecostal missionary in Tucson, Arizona, leaving her family behind. This sudden abandonment affected him, and he struggled to cope with the loss. As a child, he was quiet and introverted, with few friends. He was fixated on target practice and became a skilled marksman. By his teens, he was a self-taught gun repair and modification expert. However, his awkwardness, strict religious upbringing, and preference for solitude made him a target for bullies in high school. Despite this, he earned average grades and graduated in the middle of his class in 1960. He began his undergraduate studies in sociology at Malone University in 1962, but soon switched to the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science. He excelled there, earning his funeral director's license, graduating with honors in 1964. He furthered his expertise by obtaining his embalmer's license 3 years later, which enhanced his earning potential as a funeral director. By 1965, he had married a woman he met at Malone College and began working at a Canton, Ohio funeral home, showcasing his embalming skills. However, his shyness made client interaction difficult. He later left his job as a funeral director and embalmer and became a welder for 2 years. After that, he received a better paid position for a different company, which allowed a promotion and a better salary. By the mid-1970s, he was financially stable, and he and his wife moved into a 3-bedroom home in an affluent neighborhood. However, in the winter of 1971, the home was demolished following a house fire. Despite losing their home, he and his wife bought another house on the same street, built a 6-unit apartment building on their old property, and had 2 daughters in 1972 and 1974. Huberty did have a history of domestic violence against his wife and daughters. In one incident, his wife reported him to authorities, citing a severely injured jaw, but later downplayed the assault. Despite her efforts to get him to seek counseling starting in 1976, he refused therapy. On one occasion, his wife stated that she had gone to great lengths to manage his temper, anxiety, and paranoia, avoiding confrontations and controlling his behavior to mitigate the situation. To his neighbors, he was known for being moody, short-tempered, always fixated on his guns, and harboring grudges. He was known for having a volatile temper, lashing out violently at perceived wrongs, whether warranted or not. Neighbors even stated that their disputes with him even led to his arrest for disorderly conduct on one occasion. He was also known as a conspiracy theorist and survivalist who believed the government was out to get him. He also thought a catastrophic event like economic collapse or nuclear war was imminent and society would soon collapse. To prepare, he stockpiled food and amassed an arsenal, turning his home into a bunker ready for the apocalypse he was convinced was coming. In November 1982, his life took a devastating turn when he lost his good-paying welding job. The financial strain was crippling, and he felt like a failure as a provider for his family. A coworker stated that he told him that if he couldn't take care of his family, he'd take everyone down with him. As his unemployment dragged on, his mental health began to unravel. He started hearing voices and even threatened to fatally harm himself, but his wife persuaded him otherwise. He was able to find a temporary job, only to have the plant where he was working shut down 5 weeks later. Unable to find permanent employment in Ohio, they sold their apartment building in the spring of 1983. Shortly after, he was in a car accident with one of his daughters, leaving him injured. The physical pain and emotional turmoil took a toll on him, exacerbating his chronic neck pain and triggering worsening tremors in his hands and arms. By the summer of 1983, Huberty decided the family would be better off financially by moving to Mexico, hoping the money from selling their apartment building and home would last longer there than in the United States. However, they only received 25% of their home's mortgage value. By the winter of 1983, he had moved his family to Tijuana, Mexico, leaving most of their belongings in storage but bringing his gun collection, ammunition, and survival supplies. However, he failed to find work and regretted the move. Within 3 months, they returned to the U.S., settling in San Ysidro, a less affluent area of San Diego, next to the U.S.-Mexico border. In San Ysidro, the family rented an apartment while he job hunted. His rudeness to neighbors and annoyance at being the only Anglo-American family in the complex was evident. He completed a security guard training course in April of 1984 and got a job in Chula Vista. The money he made allowed the family to have their furniture shipped from Ohio, and they moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on Averill Road that same month. However, on July 10th, Huberty was fired due to poor performance and perceived physical instability. On July 15, 1984, Huberty confided in his wife about his growing concerns over his mental well-being. 2 days later, he called a San Diego mental health clinic and sought professional help, leaving his contact information with the receptionist, expecting a prompt callback. However, his anticipation soon turned to anger as he waited anxiously by the phone for hours, only to finally storm out of the house in frustration. Unfortunately, a simple clerical error. The receptionist had misspelled his name as Schuberty instead of Huberty, would significantly delay his chances of receiving help. Furthermore, the clinic, unaware of the gravity of the situation, mistakenly labeled his call as non-crisis and placed it on the 48-hour callback list. About an hour later, he returned home in a good mood and ate dinner with his family. After dinner, the family rode their bikes to a nearby park. Later that night, Huberty and his wife watched a movie together and went to bed. On the morning of the massacre, Wednesday, July 18, 1984, the family left their home on a trip to the San Diego Zoo. As they strolled through the exhibits, Huberty's mood suddenly darkened. He confided in his wife, expressing a sense of hopelessness, as if he felt his life was already over. Still simmering from the previous day's disappointment, he bitterly remarked, "Society had their chance," implying that the mental health clinic's neglect had sealed his fate. On their way home from the San Diego Zoo, the family stopped for lunch at a nearby McDonald's in the Claremont neighborhood and returned to their home. Shortly after returning home, Huberty entered his bedroom wearing a maroon t-shirt and green camouflage pants, while his wife was relaxing on the bed. He leaned over and said, "I want to kiss you goodbye." Not realizing the intent of his statement, she kissed him. She asked where he was going, since she planned to make dinner soon. He calmly responded, "Going hunting for humans." With a rifle slung over his shoulder, a box of ammo, and a mysterious bundle wrapped in a checkered blanket, he glanced at his eldest daughter as he walked out the front door. His last words to his daughter were, "Goodbye, I won't be back." He casually walked to the family's black Mercury Marquis sedan, loaded up his gear in the trunk, and drove away. Witnesses reported seeing Huberty driving down San Ysidro Boulevard towards the Big Bear Market and then turning towards the U.S. Post Office, his intentions seemingly uncertain. However, at 3:56 p.m., he entered the parking lot of the San Ysidro McDonald's restaurant, only blocks from his apartment, where his rage and anger reached a boiling point. Unaware of the horror that was about to unfold, 45 innocent customers sat enjoying their meals inside the McDonald's restaurant. Huberty's vehicle contained a deadly arsenal: a 9mm Browning pistol, a 9mm Uzi carbine, a 12-gauge Winchester shotgun, and an arsenal of ammunition stuffed into a box in the bag. Huberty then burst into the restaurant, aiming his shotgun at a terrified employee. The assistant manager warned, "Hey, that guy's gonna shoot you," but his words were met with silence. The gun misfired, and as the manager approached, thinking it was a joke, Huberty fired his shotgun into the ceiling, then switched to his Uzi and fatally shot the manager. The gunman then turned and fired his shotgun at the employee, wounding him, while he shouted, "Everybody on the ground!" He unleashed a hate-filled tirade, targeting a specific group and hurled accusations before shooting victims. He falsely claimed to be a Vietnam War veteran, later proven to be false, and made exaggerated and disturbing claims about having already killed many people, with more to come. When a customer pleaded for mercy, the gunman fired 14 shots, screaming, "Shut up," with every pull of the trigger. As people fled in terror, the gunman targeted a group of 6 women and children. He fatally shot a young girl, then unleashed a hail of bullets on another, striking her multiple times and wounding her sister. The bullets also fatally hit a young girl protected by the body of her pregnant aunt, who tragically sacrificed her own life to shield her niece. Then an innocent infant who was sitting next to his mother's body, sat up and began to cry, was fatally shot, leaving only one survivor in the group. Then the gunman turned and fatally shot a truck driver, and then targeted a family near the play area. Despite the father's efforts to shield his son's friend, the boy was hit multiple times but miraculously survived. The father struck 6 times, suffered devastating injuries but survived, while his wife and son were fatally shot. In a nearby booth, 3 women sought refuge, with the youngest shielded by her 2 friends. Despite their bravery, one friend was critically wounded and the other fatally shot, succumbing to her injuries the next day. A banker nearby was also fatally shot. Shortly after 4 p.m., the first distress call rang out, marking the initial plea for help in what would become a flurry of emergency responses.
712 William and 714 Wayne, sir, for a 245 just occurred at 400 West San Ysidro. I've got about 4 calls on it. 712 William. 712 North close. 712 North from close. It's supposed to be at McDonald's at 424 West San Ysidro. It's a 245 shooting.
However, the dispatcher mistakenly directed responders to the wrong McDonald's, 2 miles from the San Ysidro Boulevard McDonald's restaurant, delaying a crucial lockdown and leaving civilians vulnerable. With no official warning, only those at the scene alerted others of the danger. A young woman and her daughter narrowly escaped by reversing her car and crashing into a fence after catching a glimpse of the gunman at the drive-thru window. At 4:05 p.m., 9 minutes after the gunman had arrived, a family pulled into the McDonald's parking lot unaware of the danger. The gunman, mistaken for a repairman, critically shot and injured the mother and infant, leaving the father wounded critically as well, with life-threatening injuries. Despite their injuries, the family managed to escape. The mother handed their crying baby to her husband, who passed the infant to a young woman. She rushed the baby to safety at a nearby hospital, while the father tended to his critically wounded wife and himself, just managing to get them to a nearby building. Miraculously, all 3 survived. Other critically wounded victims tried to stem their bleeding with napkins, often in vain. 3 friends on BMX bikes then arrived at the west parking lot and hesitated as a bystander yelled something unintelligible from across the street. But before they could react, the gunman opened fire with his shotgun and Uzi, striking all 3 boys. One boy survived despite multiple wounds, but his friends were fatally shot. Next, the gunman turned towards an elderly couple entering the restaurant, fatally shooting the woman and critically wounding her husband. One witness described how the grief-stricken man cradled his wife's body, cursing at the gunman, who responded back with a vile oath and a fatal shot. By 4:10 p.m., 10 minutes after the initial 911 call, police arrived at the correct McDonald's location, with the first officer quickly assessing the situation despite the gunman's continuous fire, which even targeted his patrol car. Additional San Diego Police Department police officers arrived at the scene, cordoning off a 6-block area and setting up a command center 2 blocks away to coordinate the deployment of 175 officers in strategic positions. Within the hour, SWAT teams arrived, encircling the McDonald's to contain the violence. As the gunman's shots continued to ring out, police officers rushed to assess the situation, hindered by shattered windows and fears of a hostage situation. However, a brave escapee revealed the gunman was alone and targeting anyone in sight. Armed with this information, authorities authorized lethal force if possible. Exactly 69 minutes after the gunman's arrival, at 5:05 p.m., the order was given to neutralize the shooter.
SWAT commander.
SWAT commander, go.
He comes outside alone, they've got a green light. If he's inside with the hostages, they have a red light.
The gunman's bizarre behavior continued, which included tuning into a music station on his radio and dancing while shooting at survivors. He then stormed the kitchen, fatally shooting 3 employees and critically wounding another. A group of survivors, including 5 employees, a customer, and her infant, hid in a basement utility room, later joined by a critically wounded employee who had crawled to safety despite being shot 5 times. As a fire truck approached, the gunman fired, hitting the vehicle and grazing a firefighter. While he was shooting at the fire truck, a critically injured teenager in severe pain caught his attention, and with a cruel gesture, he fatally shot the teen, who collapsed beside his injured friend, neighbor, and a young woman. During a brief pause in the gunfire, the young woman who had been shielded by her friends earlier opened her eyes to see the gunman looming over her. He hurled a bag of French fries at her, then shot her multiple times with his shotgun, leaving her critically injured. Despite the severity of her wounds, she miraculously survived, requiring the longest hospital stay of any survivor. At 5:17 p.m., 1 hour and 21 minutes after the gunman had arrived, he made a fatal mistake by stepping into view of a SWAT sharpshooter near the drive-through window. A sniper on a rooftop across the street took the perfect shot from 35 yards away. Striking the gunman in the chest and severing his aorta. The bullet exited his spine and the gunman fell to the ground. After neutralizing the gunman, the sniper radioed an update to his fellow officers, reporting the successful takedown. However, due to the chaos and multiple shots fired, the police couldn't confirm if there were other gunmen. At 5:18 p.m., a police sergeant cautiously entered the scene. Gun trained on the motionless body, he spotted a wounded girl hiding under a table, who confirmed the deceased male was the suspect.
SWAT team leader to all units, it is code 4 inside. Send in all paramedic units into the McDonald's. It is code 4, suspects down.
Code 4, suspect down. All ambulances and motor units moving now.
The San YSIDRO McDonald's massacre ended after 77 minutes, with the gunman neutralized. He had fired at least 250 rounds, killing 21 people, 17 inside and 4 outside. Victims ranged from 4 months to 74 years old. Only 10 people inside the restaurant escaped unharmed, with 6 hiding in a basement utility room. The tragedy left a devastating trail of shattered lives and unimaginable horror. The day after the tragedy, reporters visited the gunman's father in Mount Eaton, Ohio. He shared stories of his son's childhood and their strong religious beliefs, but was somewhat overcome with grief as he gazed at a painting hanging on the wall of a lost sheep by the Jordan River. He broke down in tears, expressing deep remorse for the victims and their families, calling it the worst day of his life. McDonald's paused all TV and radio ads out of respect, and in a surprising show of solidarity, their rival Burger King also suspended their advertising campaigns. Following the incident, the gunman's family received death threats, forcing them to flee the area. They relocated to Chula Vista, where the daughters attended school under assumed names, and later moved to Spring Valley in San Diego. The gunman's wife filed a lawsuit in July of 1986 against McDonald's and her husband's former employer, seeking $5 million in damages. She claimed that his rampage was caused by a combination of unhealthy food and toxic metal exposure at work. However, on July 25, 1987, the California Court of Appeal ruled in favor of the defendants, clearing McDonald's, the employer, and the San Diego Police Department of any wrongdoing or negligence. The traumatic event also affected responding police officers, causing insomnia, memory lapses, and guilt. A 1985 study by the San Diego Police Department's chief psychologist, supported by the National Institute of Mental Health, identified that several officers were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, a lesser-known condition at the time. This research pioneered a better understanding of PTSD's impact on first responders. In addition, the San Diego Police Department reevaluated its response strategy and officer firepower after the tragedy. An officer's first-hand account highlighted the need for change, as he recalled feeling outgunned and vulnerable with only a .38 caliber revolver during the massacre. As a result, the San Diego Police Department enhanced training for specialized teams, upgraded to advanced weaponry, and improved overall preparedness to tackle similar crises. On August 2nd, the San Diego police chief held a press conference to share the findings of their investigation into the police response to the massacre. The investigation revealed that it took approximately 73 minutes from the first officer's arrival to neutralize the gunman. Although the SWAT team was delayed by heavy traffic, the police response was deemed appropriate and followed proper procedures. The police chief also rejected criticism that officers should have stormed the restaurant sooner. He cited the challenges posed by bullet-shattered windows, which made it difficult for officers to get a clear view of the gunman, especially in the bright sunlight. Additionally, he noted that the 8-minute delay between the order to use lethal force and the fatal shot did not alter the outcome. The chief maintained that the police handled the situation appropriately and took all necessary steps to minimize harm. Only 2 days after the tragedy, McDonald's planned to reopen the restaurant after swift repairs to resume business as usual. However, community leaders objected, prompting executives to reconsider. So on July 24th, McDonald's announced the decision to demolish the building, which occurred 2 days later. Subsequently, a new McDonald's has been built 2 blocks away on West San Ysidro Boulevard. In addition, McDonald's also donated the land to the city so that no restaurant would be built, and pledged $1 million to a fund supporting survivors and victims' families. The widow of McDonald's founder added $100,000 of her own money for funeral expenses, financial support, and counseling, totaling over $1.4 million in donations. However, controversially, the first payment from the fund went to the shooter's wife, despite objections from some San Ysidro residents and donors. After 4 years of discussions, the site was sold to Southwestern College in 1988, with the condition that a 300-square-foot area be dedicated as a permanent memorial for the 21 victims, finally honoring the lives lost in the tragedy. In 1990, a permanent memorial was dedicated at Southwestern College, located at 460 West San Ysidro Boulevard, on the site of the former McDonald's restaurant. The memorial honors the 21 victims of the massacre with 21 white marble pillars of varying heights, each bearing a victim's name. Designed by former Southwestern College student Roberto Valdez, the pillars represent the diverse ages and races of the victims, symbolizing unity and support in the face of tragedy. Notably, Albert Leos, who was 17 years old at the time of the San Ysidro McDonald's massacre and survived, became a San Diego police officer, eventually serving the same community where the tragedy occurred, which had a profound impact on many lives, including his own. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. Until next time, thank you for watching.